Hello and welcome to the Joinery Business Podcast. Often when running a business or when you first started running a joinery business, creating a proper team structure can be a little difficult. Often you'll accidentally put somebody in the wrong role or find that the team isn't working together quite as you want. On today's episode, Bruce goes over some of the methods and tactics you can take to put together a proper team structure and put your team members into the right spots, as well as ensure you've created a productive team dynamic. If you have any questions about today's episode, be sure to jump on over to the Joinery Business Hub on Facebook. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's episode.
Hey, welcome back to the Joinery Business Podcast, and I will welcome you with a cup of coffee. It's one of my favorite mugs, by the way. This is a mug that I got while traveling in Canada a little while ago. It's a really great mug. Keeps coffee nice and warm. Hopefully you're enjoying a cup of coffee, or if you're not, you're enjoying something anyway. Today we're going to talk about company structure. And when we're talking about small businesses, particularly businesses that have been made by cabinet making people and joinery manufacturing people, there tends to be not a lot of great structure to things. As you know, at the Joinery Coach, we coach businesses to create great businesses. And one of the first things we pretty much always need to start with is what's the structure of the business? It is quite interesting because we work with small businesses and relatively large businesses. And I always find it interesting that even the large businesses that have grown obviously over the years from something small, and they get to the 30 or 40 or 50 people in their business, often have no structure. They often have very flat, undefined organizational structure. And often those are the ones that are in the most chaos. They have the same sort of problems that smaller business, just different numbers, an extra couple of zeros on the end, basically. So let's talk a little bit about where to start when you're making company structure. So the first thing you really want to identify, if you're the business owner, you need to, identify that you as the owner have two roles. As the owner of the business, that's not a role like an employee would have. So being the fact that you're the business owner and working in the business, you're going to make some choices as to what role you work in the business. My recommendation is you approach that in the same way as if you were an employee. So essentially, you're making a choice to work as an employee in your business. You could make a different choice. You could say, I'm not going to work in the business at all. I'm just going to own it, and I'm going to have employees in the business. Look at it from that perspective and just imagine yourself in one of those roles. The first thing we want to work out is if we have structure to a senior team in your business, the best way to approach this is from the top down. Now, the one thing I learned quite a long time ago was there's a lot of conflict or friction in senior teams because people aren't really clear in what they do, or maybe they don't trust the other person on the senior team. So finding the right people for these positions is really important. But the three most senior positions in a typical joinery manufacturing business are going to be someone that is in charge of the finance, someone that ultimately will say, yes, we're going to use company money to buy the new edge bander or to buy the new router or something like that. That's the person that is ultimately in charge of finance, someone that pays the bills. There will be one person in your business right now that is that person. It might be you. And usually underneath that person, we have quite often a small team, maybe a bookkeeper that works in team with the finance manager. That's what we call the finance or administration team. But you want one person that's identified in that role and define that role as your finance manager. The other person we have in a business like yours is the sales and marketing manager. That's a person that works with customers and gets the yes or no from the customer when selling. Some people will say to me, Bruce, we don't sell. That's interesting. If a business didn't sell, you'd never have any work. So ultimately, you're always selling something because your customers are always buying from you. So even if you have a customer that's a repeat customer, that is, you don't have to have a sell to it. We have to maintain that relationship and keep the product, always moving forward. So there's always one person that does that, one person that the customer will go to and keep that relationship going, even if you have ongoing, let's say, builder clients. But you might be a kitchen place that has new clients all the time. Oftentimes that's the business owner, but there's always one person that's in charge of the sales. That's the second role. And the third role is production management. So once it goes from sales into production, who ultimately makes sure that it goes through production and gets done on time the way that the sale wanted it, and the installation happens. And sometimes we have a fourth role, which is what we call the project manager. So if you have a large enough business, you might have a person that looks after the projects, and that's after it leaves the factory and your installations are happening. So the senior team starts with someone in charge of finance, somebody in charge of sales and marketing, somebody in charge of production, and somebody in charge of projects being installed. So my advice to everybody listening to this podcast right now that is saying, I don't know where to start with my organizational structure, I've just given you the bones of it. Those are the 3, possibly 4 senior team members that you want to start building teams under. All right, so that's great. Now we've got a visual of what the business organizational structure looks like. The next thing we want to decide on is who is the right person to be in those roles. So here's the thing about humans. Some people are better suited for some roles than others. Some people are more of a technical sort of person. So if we look at who would be the best person in the finance management role, that sort of person typically is the sort of person that is perfectly fine trying to collect all the money all the time and never paying any money to anyone. So you want to look for a person that has that mindset and that personality makeup, where you want to make sure that all of the financial controls are well under control and looked after, and any money going out is looked after. You're not overpaying on subscriptions, your rent is the right, that person that controls your finance. The person that is the best suited for sales and marketing has a totally different personality makeup. Great salespeople are often people that are really great at building relationships and are very focused on making sure the customer is well looked after. So they will be the sort of people that will say, I want to serve my customers, and I actually want to have unlimited options available right now, today. That's a great sales mindset. Now, if we compare that to the production manager's mindset, the typical production manager is usually someone that's highly technical and doesn't want to have too many options and wants to have unlimited time to be able to make them. So as we look at these senior roles, we can understand why we have friction in these senior roles, because the personality makeups are very, very different. So what we need to do is we need to put a system in place that allows them to work together, but one can't have authority over the other. A good example of that is a salesperson can't promise when a job can be done, because the production manager is the only one that really knows what the production schedule is all about. But the salesperson could say, typically we have a 6 to 8 week lead time, and if you're looking for the job at a certain date, I will ask my production manager and get back to you today on whether we can lock it in for that date. But ultimately, the production manager would have the say on that, but the salesperson is working on it with their customer. So that dynamic between this senior team is really important, and it's really important to get the right people in the right places. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop, and my whole goal here today was to give you just a little bit of food for thought on where to start creating your senior team structure in your business and building teams underneath those senior team members. If you have any questions on any of this, please join us in our Facebook group, the Joinery Business Hub. Send me a message. If you're watching this on social media, put a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to put a comment and let's open a discussion. Love to have you ask any questions. That's it for me, Bruce from the Joinery Business Podcast. Peace out.